Hello and welcome to this course on Ionic 2. Ionic is an HTML JavaScript framework that allows you to create apps for any mobile device and the web at the same time using the same set of code. Ionic 2 is built around AngularJS 2, which is a Google project. Now, Angular 2 is mighty different to Angular 1, and hence why Ionic 2 is also mighty different to Ionic 1. You cannot mix the two versions of the platform. And this is why I'm doing this course, because no one's done a proper rundown yet, and I'm here to fix that. Ionic 2 uses the Cordova build system that allows you to build your apps for mobile devices. And when I first started making apps, I tried to use these HTML frameworks, but they weren't very good, so I gave up and I became a proper, in inverted commas, app developer. I use Swift or Objective-C, I use Java, I use C#. But recently I've rediscovered these platforms and they have become so much better. They're so much more slick that even as a native app developer myself, I can highly recommend them for quick prototyping and just to get your ideas out there. And it's not just me, it's big companies that believe this too. The Netflix app is actually built using HTML frameworks. And we all know that is actually a pretty slick app. So in this course for Ionic 2, I expect you to be either a beginner or just new to Ionic 2. I do not expect you to know any JavaScript, TypeScript, or any HTML, although it does help if you do know some, because then you'll understand some of the small things that I'm doing. However, I do explain most things that I'm doing. I also expect you to follow along with me and try everything that I'm doing on screen at the same time. Pause if you have to, it doesn't matter how long you take. Right, so in this course, what are we going to cover? Well, a lot. We're going to start at the very beginning with the setup. Then we're going to create our first app and simulate it. We're going to look at creating alerts or pop-ups, button clicks, binding values, so how do you update data on a screen from your code? TypeScript functions, pipes, which are insanely useful and a core concept of Ionic 2. Theming, because of course you want to give your app your own personal look. Color theory, to apply to the theming so your app actually looks quite modern. We'll look at syntactically awesome style sheets, or SAS. We'll look at how to run on iOS and Android simulators and indeed real devices that are plugged into your computer. We'll look at navigation concepts, this idea of push and pop. And I can tell you, coming from the native app development scene, I try to include a lot of information about app development as a sort of overarching theme, because I want you to go away from this course and not only be able to use Ionic 2, I also want you to have the core concepts for native app development should you ever go down that route. And that's exactly what I do with you. Throughout the course, I explain things in more general terms so you pick that up. Then we look at data sharing. How do we pass data from one view to another? Sliders, so those things you swipe across on the screen that might be used for tutorials. Loading images, looking at layouts, so something like the Facebook app with its side menu or the Instagram app with its tabbed menu at the bottom. We'll look at lists, which of course are fundamental to all apps. We'll get some remote JSON data to populate those lists. We'll learn how to debug our app and send ourselves messages. We'll learn about swipe to delete in the lists. We'll look at storing local data inside of our app. And we'll look at SQLite storage, which is the gold standard for data storage in apps. And as part of that, we'll learn about Cordova plugins and how to install them. There's a lot of information to take in here, so I'd advise you take this course module by module. I've designed it so each module is more or less standalone, and you should take them in order. So, without much further ado, let's let the fun begin.